Heyo, gamer with taste here. I really wasn't expecting to make another video quite so soon, but I started watching the Borderlands gameplay reveal instead of just watching other content creators talk about the gameplay reveal, and it got me a little bit more excited. Um, I don't know if I'm hyped for Borderlands 4 yet. Um, I'll be honest. I'll be honest. Once they release the skill trees, then I'll start nerding out. I'm gonna start nerding out really hard once they release the skill trees. That's just my bread and butter. That's what I want to see. That's just everything I care about. Everything I care about is in the skill trees. I want to see the skill trees before I get the skill trees. That's just the way I am. I I really want to see the skill trees. Then I'll start getting hyped, then I'll start nerding out over it, and then the hype will be real. But after watching the gameplay reveal, I have been thinking a little bit about Pearlescents because they don't seem to be coming back in Borderlands 4. At least not from the sounds of it. I think according to what Epic NNG says, it sounds like the developers just don't know what to do with Pearlescents because Pearlescents are a higher rarity than legendaries, right? So their line of reasoning is like, do we make them more powerful than legendaries? Because then your whole loadout is just going to be Pearlescents, right? And Pearlescents are going to make up like the top, what, 1% of the loot pool. So, like, okay, cool. So you just have Pearlescents equipped and that's it. I mean, personally, it's like, okay, but I mean, what, am I going to use a purple over a legendary? I mean, I would in Borderlands 1. Maybe I would in some other scenarios in some other Borderlands games, but what, am I just supposed to equip all legendaries? I mean, is every single character just going to have to equip? I mean, to be perfectly honest, plenty of people play Borderlands only ever using one gun. I never use any other gun on Zane other than uh the light show, I don't think. I think the light show is like the only pistol I ever use on Zane. Well, it depends on the build. It depends on the build. Whatever. Whatever. I'm done with this whole side rant. They don't know what to do with Pearlescents. Do they make it more powerful? Then you're just stuck equipping the top like 1% of the loot pool. But if they make it less powerful or on par, then it doesn't warrant the Pearlescent rarity. So I went ahead and I broke out the whiteboard, all right? And I want to show you guys my thoughts on the whole Pearlescent thing. So, what are Pearlescents? They are a higher rarity than legendary, all right? Simple as that. They're rarer than legendaries. And there's not really much more to really define them as. Now, what does a higher rarity really mean, though? That's the real question. Higher rarity, does that mean that we have higher damage? I mean, if we're going to be farming for something that doesn't drop nearly as often, when we get it, we want it to be worthy of receiving, right? So, do we just give it higher damage? Do we just make it better? Do we just raise up the DPS? Do we just make it a better weapon than every other legendary? Does it just need to be the best of the best as far as damage and DPS is concerned? No. No, I don't think that's what it means. I don't think that's what it means when we have a higher rarity. Now, I believe that higher rarity means higher utility. That's what I believe. If I farm for something that drops at a lower rate, I need to use that for something, okay? Like, I need to utilize it. It needs to be able to be utilized to a higher degree than other legendaries. Now, there's different types of utility, though, okay? There's many different types of utility. Now, what are the types of utility? We have universal utility. This is stuff like the Unkempt Herald in Borderlands 2. Every single character can pretty much use that weapon and do absolutely gorgeous amounts of damage with it. It's a very tasty amount of damage just by equipping an Unkempt Herald. It doesn't matter who you are. You can equip the weapon and you get some tasty damage out of it. And it's pretty universal. About the only person that it doesn't work against is like one of the assassins. But whatever, we don't need to talk about that. There's universal utility. And then there's niche utility, which I would define niche to mean like if you have a specific build, if you are doing something very specific, right, with your character, then it has utility. But niche goes a little bit farther than just, if you're spec'd into this skill tree, then it's good. That's not what niche means. So what niche means is, like, I think the best definition of niche is on Zane. If you were to have the build where you buff up your explosive radius on all your gear, and then you get the eraser, I think it's eraser, where critical hits punch through enemies and then they deal extra damage. It's basically just Boar, but for Zane, right? Then you can have this build where if you equip like certain kinds of rocket launchers, then you can have a detonation, an explosion that crits and then passes through to other enemies. And it ends up double dipping into the stats that you have, and it just wipes entire maps. And it's incredible. I've never had it. Moxie had it. I don't know how Moxie had it. Like, Moxie is, I don't know how, whatever. Moxie had it, and it was really cool looking, all right? But that's a very niche build, because not only do you need to spec into, like, a explosive damage radius, but you also need to use Zane, but you also need to use specific weapons, right? It's not just any explosive weapon. It's specific explosive weapons. So there's niche things, and they play more off of the hidden mechanics in the game that aren't necessarily told to you. You kind of have to figure it out, right? But that's how I would define a niche build. And the reason why I define niche as such a specific thing is because we have other types of utility to talk about. We also have stunted utility. So this would be stuff like the Unforgiven in Borderlands 2, where it would be a great gun, but the fire rate is just horrible. Now, the Unforgiven in Borderlands 2 is probably a bad example in the fact that no matter how much you raise up the fire rate on the Unforgiven, it won't actually increase the fire rate. Like, it's actually capped at a certain point. Like, the whole point of stunted utility is that you buff it up to the point where it's actually powerful. Like, it would be powerful if the fire rate wasn't so garbage, right? But you can buff up the fire rate to be incredible or base. Like, you can double the fire rate, so now it's not as garbage and it's actually usable and good because all the other stats are actually incredible it was only that one stat that sucked. So you have to build for it, but you can build for it on any character, really. Certain characters would probably utilize it better than others, but whatever. That's how I define stunted. And then specified utility, that's stuff like the toothpick and the retainer in Borderlands 2 and the last DLC that they had. So you really only use those things when you're fighting. I forget the name of the raid boss, but the giant worm raid boss in the final DLC, that where you fought all the plant people, whatever. It could also be the easy mode in Borderlands 2. You use that for the Digistruct Peak. The Peak opener is kind of in the specified area because you would use that for the raid on Digistruct Peak, but honestly, that's pretty universal. It's just a really good weapon. It could also just be like specifically for different builds. I don't know. It's kind of between those two. But then there's also boss utility. Some things are just better for killing bosses. You know, some things are just better at dealing high amounts of damage in one shot, or just melting a boss and taking down huge health bars. But they're not so good at mobbing because they just don't have the fire rate. They just don't have the ad clear to really deal with multiple health bars. They can take down any health bar, but they can't take down hundreds of health bars, right? So there's boss utility, there's mob utility, where you can take down multiple smaller health bars and you can clear out like hundreds of smaller mobs, but you can't necessarily use it to kill a boss. One big health bar is kind of the weakness, right? So there's all those types of utility, and then there's none. There's the garbage weapons that have no utility whatsoever. They do no damage, all right? They can't take down a regular mob very quickly. They can't take down multiple mobs very quickly. They can't take down a boss to save their life, and there's no real reason to use it. And they don't have any special effects that are otherwise redeeming it. And so they're just kind of not really worth it. And, you know, you could ask yourself, okay, well, no utility. Are you just really saying that other things outperform it? Look, if there are plenty and plenty and plenty of better choices, it might as well just have no utility. Like if there's like 50 other weapons that have better utility than it, even if it's just a legendary weapon, if there's 50 other legendary weapons that are clearly better than that one, it's basically useless. It's basically a useless legendary. Why use it? And a lot of this, I would even say, goes so far as to say endgame. Because, like, you can kill mobs super, super easily with pretty much any legendary weapon in Borderlands 3 before you beat the game. But once you beat the game and then you get into Mayhem 11, then you actually have to realize, like, certain weapons are just horrible, you know? Certain legendaries just don't work anymore. The Nighthawken is no longer a good weapon. And maybe it falls into niche now, maybe it falls into specified or stunted or something, but if you can do better with another choice because it's more universal and you don't have to work so hard to make it okay, and you can work very minimally to make it absolutely great, then it's basically none. So what kind of utility do we want out of Pearlescents? Well, we don't want this, all right? We don't want none, all right? They gotta have some utility. Don't give us a worthless Pearlescent. Don't do that, okay? Don't give us a useless pearlescent. That's not what we need. That's not what a pearlescent is. When I think of a pearlescent, I think it has to be unique. You got to be creative with it. You got to put some time and effort into thinking about what it does and what its identity is, what its role will be. It has to be powerful. I know you don't necessarily want to make it universally better than every other weapon, but you cannot face the fact that if we're going to be farming for it, if it's going to be rare, because that's also what it is. It's rare, okay? That's a pearlescent. It's rare. But if it's rare, you got to face facts. It's got to be powerful. It's got to have some tasty damage to it. Somewhere in some sort of utility, it's got to have some tasty damage. It's got to have some use, a purpose. But something that I would like for pearlescents to be known for is that it requires some knowledge, all right? Knowledge, the most valuable thing in the world, right? I would like pearlescents to require a little bit of game knowledge. You need to understand what makes a build a good build. You have to understand why the gun doesn't suck. Maybe it looks stunted, right? But if you have the required game knowledge, then you can overcome that and make it super, super powerful. And then you can put in the work to make it more universal, right? But it doesn't come universal, it comes stunted. Or you gotta have really good knowledge of game mechanics, hidden things that the game just doesn't tell you. And you gotta know these things and know how this weapon interacts with the enemies, and or the skills, or the action skills, or whatever, what have you. You gotta be careful though. You don't want to make it too easy to understand any of this, right? You can't make it so like, it requires game knowledge. It's a niche build, but like there's other niche builds like it that's already existed. You have to be careful. You got to make it unique, right? It can't be like other weapons. It just can't. I don't want it to be like other weapons. I want it to be its own weapon. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge, maybe. I mean, especially if they make legendaries super, super powerful. If they make legendaries super, super powerful, and super, super unique, and super, super good, and super cool. Like, if they just do a good job making legendaries, it's going to be harder to do a good job with pearlescents. Because you already have a few legendaries that feel like pearlescents, right? Maybe you already have a few legendaries that are so universally good that you don't necessarily need that pearlescent. Or maybe, point is, my whole point with all of this is that pearlescents should return to Borderlands 4. All right? I don't understand why we can't have a higher rarity. I don't understand why it just can't exist in Borderlands 4. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, the thing that makes me so frustrated in Borderlands 2 is that they were so close to making a good pearlescent. The Unforgiven was so close to being a great pearlescent. It was so close to just having stunted utility. And if you were to just if you were to just get your badass rank up really, really high and buff the fire rate, and then throw on a sheriff's badge and play the right character, like maybe Axton, and you can use Metal Storm. I think Metal Storm buffed fire rate with all weapons. Maybe it could be good. Maybe you could have turned it into a regular, fires as fast as possible Jacob's revolver that had Jacob's sniper rifle damage. But it didn't come that way. It came stunted, right? And you had to work to get it there. And you had to plan it out. You had to think about it. And you had to wear the right class mods, and you had to get your badass rank leveled up. But no, they just capped it. They just had it capped out, and you could not actually get the fire rate over what they had the fire rate at. They just had the fire rate super, super low, and you could not overcome it. They were so close with making a good pearlescent. Um, the bear cat, I don't know, man. I'm not going to go through all the pearlescents and tell you exactly what they needed and how they failed. I feel like the Bearcat just needed a little bit of extra damage, and then maybe it could have been good on Axton. I think if the Bearcat was buffed to the point where it was the best assault rifle for Axton, but not really the best assault rifle for any other character. I mean, assault rifles really weren't the best weapons in general in Borderlands 2 anyways. So if you made it like the optimal assault rifle for Axton, then it could actually be used for something because Axton was supposed to specialize in assault rifles, right? But he didn't really have a whole lot going on for assault rifles specifically. It's mostly for grenades and stuff like that. But and other weapons could have been better with other things. And they didn't really have crazy effects in Borderlands 2. There wasn't really anything special about the Pearlescents, the way that there was something special about the legendaries. Like the Unkempt Herald had a very special effect to it, and it fired in a very special way. Um, it was, I mean, Pearlescents were really missing that in Borderlands 2. Um, the pitchfork, the Lyuda, all of the good. I mean, hell, even the I forget what it's called, but the legendary drop from um, Captain Flint, even that one was really cool. You shot an enemy, and an electric orb rose up and exploded over them. It wasn't necessarily good because the damage was terrible, but it had that special thing to it, right? And Pearlescents just didn't have that really. I mean, they were kind of special-ish, but they really didn't have much going on with them. And I don't understand why they didn't. Um, I know this is kind of a long video, and I don't think anyone at Gearbox is going to be seeing this video, but honestly, I don't understand why Gearbox isn't. I don't know why they're having such a hard time understanding what makes a pearlescent a pearlescent. I mean, if you're going to be making drops legendary and higher, super rare, like if you want to make loot feel good in Borderlands 4 and you want legendaries to feel like special events, and you're wondering how exactly pearlescents fit into the mix, then you gotta have a small yet varied selection of pearlescents that fit into various roles for various different characters. Maybe you have one pearlescent that's good for only really one character. But if you use it on that one character and you know the kind of build that it fits into, then it's absolutely, maybe it's A tier. Maybe it's S tier. Maybe it's not the best pick, but maybe it has mobbing utility. Maybe it has bossing utility. Maybe it has stunted. Maybe it has stunted utility, but only for one character, right? Maybe it has universal utility, like it's just an all-around good weapon, but there are certain moments where you don't really want to use it. It's not necessarily like it's universally good, but it's not the best, right? Maybe it's like that. I wouldn't necessarily want that. Maybe it just comes inherently stunted and a whole bunch of different characters can use it. Maybe it maybe it has like a special effect that really doesn't shine unless you use it in a specific way. Not necessarily too specific, not like you have to try super, super hard just to kill a regular enemy, but you gotta think, man. You gotta come up with something. I'm just spitballing here. I'm just a dude on the internet with a whiteboard. I'm not the guy working at Gearbox. I just started talking about this 25 minutes ago, right? So don't expect me to be able to tell you exactly what it all needs. But you need, like, I don't know, 10 to 15 pearlescents that are exceedingly rare and difficult to get, but desired for one character or another. I I would say you should probably give them all separate sources. Honestly, give them all separate sources. I think that would be the best thing to do. Um, Epic NNG said that, or no, it was Moxie. Moxie says that he thinks that Pearlescents should have fixed parts. I don't completely agree with that, but I know what he means. I think if you have the parts fixed, that would be fine, but choose the fixed parts very carefully, okay? Very, very carefully. Make sure it's good, okay? Don't choose parts because you know that it's going to end up nerfing it so it's not too OP. We want OP, okay? That's what we want, kind of. We want tasty damage, all right? But you got to have like 10 to 15 pearlescents that are difficult to get, all separate sources, very rare, but they all have their use. They all fit in somewhere. And exactly where may not necessarily be the most obvious thing. Maybe it is the most obvious thing for some of them. There's at least one for each character, maybe. Then there's a few that are stunted. And then there's a few that are universally good at certain things, maybe. And then maybe there's a few that are really niche, but if you understand the game mechanics really deeply and you understand exactly how it's really good, then you can use it to great effect. But you need that extra game knowledge to understand what makes it good. Or maybe it's specifically for like this boss in particular. It now just greatly helps you kill that boss, that raid boss. Maybe it doesn't necessarily one shot it, maybe it's not necessarily the only gun that really does well against that boss. Maybe it's not necessarily the best choice for that boss, but it gives you extra utility for that raid boss, for that fight, that makes the fight more fun, maybe easier. I mean, yeah, sure, why not easier? I mean, you work so hard to get it. It has a 0.01% drop chance. I don't know what drop chance it has, but you work so hard to get it and it's exceedingly rare. You might as well make the boss fight easier, you know? Um, but yeah, and I think it's important that they understand that in a looter shooter genre, we really want to chase something. We want things that are highly, highly valued because they're highly, highly rare and very, very, very cool. They're really unique and they can be utilized and they're interesting. Destiny did that really, really well, particularly with Gallarhorn. But Gallarhorn was just universally good. I guess you could probably say it was more of a boss. You could use it to clear ads. It was universally good, but it was a heavy weapon. So, uh, ammo was limited. But everyone wanted Gallarhorn. Everyone. Everyone wanted Gallarhorn. And that's what made it so good. I mean, the Thorn was super, super special. I mean, that goes into PvP, but people really liked the Thorn. I, I could go on and on and on about specific weapons in Destiny that made those weapons so highly desired and so special. But they they were rare, and they were sought after, and they were special, and they were unique. And that's what made the grind in Destiny feel special. And Borderlands really lacks that, because some of the rarest weapons are absolute garbage. And it's like, why do I kill this boss if if the rarest thing I can get is just garbage? And the easiest thing, the one weapon that I love the most, the Chaosin, isn't even all that hard to get. I just turn down the mayhem level, right? And kill a boss. Or I turn up the mayhem level and I just kill a boss. And I kill him like 5 times and then I get it. Or less. Maybe I kill him once and I get it. Right? And I think that's the whole point, is utility. It needs to be able to be utilized. And the Bearcat can't be utilized. The Unforgiven can't be utilized. Like, it needs to be good. It needs to be powerful. It needs to have some sort of utility to it. And it doesn't necessarily need the highest damage. It just needs to have its place, okay? Don't give us a Pearlescent with no utility. We don't want that. We don't need that. That's what we had in Borderlands 2. And that's why we didn't really care about them. So, yeah, this is going to be the end of the video. I'm done ranting. It's a pretty long video, but I feel like I have done pretty well at voicing everything that I care about to say, that I care to say. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a good one. Hope you continue having good ones. And I hope to catch you on the next video. Whenever the next video is. I don't know. I don't know when. But whenever that is, I'll have to catch you then. Take care.